Now, uh, here I'd like to talk about labor, household labor, supply and demand, which is explained, which is following, the previous explanation, such as derived demand for labor. You can, in detail, please check the reference. This reference, chapter 22, written by these two development economists, and entitled as this development economics. This chapter is the last chapter out of 20 chapters in this textbook. So now, quite specifically, but it is quite specifically popular, but it sometimes doesn't care, or since this issue is a little bit advanced one, they are using a transaction cost. So, but you want to be a bit popular for these issues. Now, so this is the figure which I want to explain, and as this table shows, there are six social classes is assumed based on land use, based on the assets endowment. In here, landhold. I mean the land for farming, and so the order for this social class is depend on or have the range is from a small landowner to much larger landowner. Now, regarding the family labor use, although it is not specifically stated how many households here, but roughly speaking, landless farmers, landless workers, as a small farm size, whereas a large commercial farm can be considered as this household has a relatively large farm, a relatively large family labor. Maybe it doesn't matter. So don't count the family member. Don't consider the family number of the family member. But we want to see the demand side as a household. Which means since in case of landless farmer, they don't have land for farming, so a family labor use mainly mainly applied for, mainly used as a off-farm, so-called off-farm, most likely off-farm labor use, because they don't have their own farmland, since the landless worker. Then what about as the farm size, which is measured by the land assets, size of the land assets, having or holding a bit more farmland, then this type of social class farm has opportunity to use family labor to use on farm. 1+. Then in case of the third category, purely family farm. A purely family farm is defined as they don't use their family labor off farm. Only on farm is the only way to use family labor. That is the definition for the purely family farm. No hire or recruit, hire in, and no work for supervise. Then the fourth one, as in case of small commercial farm, no off farm, but on farm, mainly on farm, and partially a little bit higher in. And the last social class, named as a large commercial farm, their main family labor use for for on farm, partially on farm. Since they own a relatively large farmland, and they need to recruit, but the top of it, they might not want to work because they have their land asset. They might have some amount of non-working, non-labor income. So in that case, although partially this household use family labor on farm, but mainly family labor is used for supervise. So starting with these 5 social class category, then let's take a look one by one. And as you can see, you might be able to see some kind of a price bound as the upper bound, this one, and the lower bound, this one, and the holding and sharing or holding the household labor supply, using the same labor supply, and as horizontal axis, the amount of or quantity of the labor. So as the social class social class bigger, I mean larger household, larger household, I don't know, larger family land owner, likely to be the number of the household labor supply likely to be more. Whereas the D1, or A1 case, D1 demand, D1 depicted demand, A1 depict asset size. So D1 is the landless worker, and then the demand for the household labor is quite small. Demand is quite small because they don't have any. This household doesn't have any farmland, so they cannot burn, or they cannot use their household labor in their own farmland. So there is the demand for the household labor is quite small. Then as the land asset or farmland size getting bigger, then as you can see, the demand shift up more and more. So let's take a look in a case of D1. Again, landless farm household case. In this case, small demand to household labor, so hired as most likely the household labor is hired as off-farm, and then which means they can sell. They sell their household labor in order to get the income, in this case wage. And since this is household labor supply and demand, and at this their household can be sell at this price, then the household labor can be sell as off-farm labor up to this amount, or this amount. Then the rest of the household labor cannot sell, so their time is allocated as a leisure. Rest of the time of this household is applied for leisure, is allocated as a leisure time. Now move on to the D2. D2, which one? D2, a sub-family farm. They have both off-farm working opportunity and on-farm working opportunity. As you can see in here. Oh no, D2. with holding the same household labor supply. And then for the D2 household, this is the demand curve. So at this intersection, you can see the intersection in here. And this is explanation by the typical subjective farm subjective a farm subjective equilibrium model, which doesn't have any transaction cost. So as we can what we in this figure we are watching only this lower panel, but upper panel is a way to explain by the farm equilibrium model. As we can see, there are two equilibrium points, and for the consumer equilibrium point, and which maximize the utility, and then as the producer equilibrium point, which maximize the revenue. Then, as a result, as we can see in here, the solution for a household labor allocation, household labor time allocation, is on-farm this much and off-farm this much, and then the rest of the time, household time apply or allocate to leisure. This is the process for explanation. If on-farm labor use, which means value of marginal product is greater than wage, which this household face at the labor market. So the value of since the value of marginal product using their household is greater than market price of the labor, so they allocate their time on farm, and then input more. As they input more of on farm, marginal value of marginal plus value of marginal product minus, as input more on farm, a value of a marginal product getting less and less, less and decrease. Then and finally end up with this. Then such as the value of marginal product is less than market wage. The market wage is higher than the value of marginal product in their on farm. So they would rather sell. So selling the household. So which is called as on farm. Now let's move on to D3. D3 has the intersect on this lower price bound with this wage rate. Their household is sold. So this is a wage rate paid in selling. So just compare this green one and this red one. To looking at this duration, obviously up to this point, from this point, obviously this relation, such as the value of marginal products, is greater than market wage rates. So they would rather work on farm instead of working. They don't want to work with the lower wage rates. Then what about D4? D4 is the focusing point, which is focusing point, and it is quite important case, such as in this case the shadow price, shadow wage, which is obtained by their own household labor supply and household labor demand. This household labor demand is obtained as derived demand for the household labor. So at this intersect, like this, this shadow price, shadow wage rate is fine. Okay. This is a way to explain this situation by the farm household subjective equilibrium point. This category doesn't have any participation for market, like buying other household labor, and also they don't sell their household labor to the market. In that case, it is called no market participation. They decide their own way with this utility isoquant, which will depict the utility level and the production function. They decide not to work in the market. So all household labor is used as a on-farm labor, because again, market products of farming, marginal, no, not market, but value of marginal product of farming. The value of marginal product of farming is higher than the wage minus transaction cost. That is the reason. So when you observe such a farm household which doesn't participate to the market, neither recruiting or hiring, nor selling their own household. So once you find such a household going on their own way, so this is a way to explain. Now let's move on D4. D4, yes, this is D4. Okay. Regarding D4 type household, there is one more important point associated with this price bound. Which is, this is a way to explain visually as follows. This is a way to explain when you observe the specific household doesn't participate in market. And this is a way. Then, as the price bound narrow, this figure has initially has a relatively wide price bound with upper bound and lower bound, relatively widespread price band. Then, as I draw this with this relatively narrow price band, so as the price band narrow, the range for no market participation less, and at as the narrowest price bound, and there is no price band. Then we can observe a quick price response, such as then as the wage goes up, even sometimes even self-sufficient household quickly change or quickly participate in the labor market, or quickly, as the price goes down. Sometimes the household make a decision to sell their household labor quickly. So we can observe a kind of price respond for the price respond as the market participation. So self-sufficient, in other words, self-sufficient. When we observe the self-sufficient household at just one point, as a result of the price band narrow case and the narrowest case, then self-sufficient behavior at just one point. Then as the price go up or as the price go down, then quickly household decision can respond quickly to wage change, and we can observe then either we can observe as decision making, and then either sell the household time or buy the other household time as higher in. So this is the way to explain this type of household decision making. The important point is that this price band is this price band is defined with the transaction cost. Now let's move on. D6, the largest farm household category, and named as large commercial farm. Large commercial farm. Large commercial farm has a large farmland. So farm size as land assets is the greatest. This category has the greatest one they have. So as the farm size bigger, we can assume farm labor demand is bigger. So this is the visual explanation. Holding this household labor supply, same one, and this is the demand, derived demand for household labor. Then we can find this point. This point. we are watching this one, and we can consider with this a subjective equilibrium model. Then we can explain this way. This amount for on-farm, and the rest of them the hire in or recruit some others household labor. Then rest of them is the leisure.